Pentagon War Games project that invading Iran would demand 500,000 troops, 100,000 casualties, and $12 billion every month. For over 2 centuries, no country has successfully conquered and held this nation. Armies have crossed its borders, battles have been won, but lasting occupation, that's where every foreign power has broken. Understanding why means going back to a siege in 1722 that set a pattern no empire has escaped. On May 23, 1722, Mahmud Hotak's Afghan army entered Isfahan after a year-long siege. The city's gates opened under a promise of safety, but the aftermath brought executions, looting, and the end of Safavid rule. The collapse of the capital shattered the old tax and administrative system, leaving the Persian heartland fractured. Afghan control spread to central Iran, but their grip was shallow and short-lived. Rival powers seized the moment. The Ottomans pressed into western Azerbaijan and the Caucasus, while Russian troops established outposts along the Caspian coast, formalized in the Treaty of Ganja. British traders and Tatar warbands moved through Kerman, each carving out pieces as the Safavid dynasty faded into chaos. The next decades saw a country divided among warlords and tribal confederacies. After Nader Shah's assassination in 1747, the Afsharids and Zands rose and fell in rapid succession. Order returned only when Aga Muhammad Khan, a Qajar chieftain, launched a ruthless campaign in the 1790s. His forces crossed the Alborz foothills, besieged Kerman, and crushed the last Zand defenders. In 1796, he crowned himself Shah, moving the capital to Tehran and founding the Qajar dynasty. Treaties with the Ottomans and Russians recognized his rule, but Iran's sovereignty came at the cost of minor border concessions, not tribute. Foreign armies kept coming. In the early 1800s, Russian generals pushed south, defeating Persian forces at Ekmiadzin and Ganja. The Treaty of Gulistan in 1813 forced Iran to surrender Dagestan and the South Caucasus, and the Treaty of Turkmenchay in 1828 stripped away Yerevan and Nakhchivan. Yet, even after battlefield defeats and harsh terms, the Qajar state endured. The Shah remained on his throne, the bureaucracy survived, and the core of Iran stayed intact. Time and again, outside powers won battles, signed treaties, and seized borderlands, but none succeeded in holding the Persian heartland. The pattern was set. Foreign victories brought concessions, not conquest. Across a map of the Middle East, Iran stands apart, a country boxed in by walls of stone and stretches of emptiness. The Zagros Mountains run for 1,500 kilometers along the western border, a jagged barricade rising to peaks over 4,000 meters. These ridges aren't just a backdrop. They're a labyrinth of narrow passes and steep valleys that have trapped and worn down armies for centuries. To the north, the Alborz range forms another shield, crowned by Mount Damavand at 5,671 meters, the highest point in the region. The only real opening through these northern mountains is a narrow corridor near Tehran, just wide enough for a road and, in winter, often closed by snow or landslides. Beyond the high ground, the land falls away into 2 of the harshest deserts on Earth. The Dasht-e-Kavir and Dasht-e-Lut are vast, sun-blasted expanses where summer temperatures can soar above 50 degrees Celsius and rainfall barely registers. There are no navigable rivers threading through this heartland, only dry riverbeds and seasonal streams that vanish for most of the year. For any invading force, these deserts are more than empty space. They are a crucible of heatstroke, thirst, and mechanical breakdown, where supply convoys crawl at night to escape the sun and risk getting lost in a maze of sand and salt flats. Iran's sheer elevation adds another layer of difficulty. Over 70% of the borders are shielded by mountains higher than 1,500 meters, leaving only 2 real invasion routes: the Khuzestan Plain in the southwest and the narrow Caspian coastal strip in the north. Both are tight corridors, hemmed in by high ground and vulnerable to ambush or seasonal flooding. Geography here is not just scenery, it's an active force, shaping every campaign and turning the land itself into a defender. Supply has always been the breaking point for foreign armies in Iran. Roads across the country's interior were few and often unusable for heavy convoys. In the early 1940s, less than 15% of Iran's roads were paved, and even those were clustered near the coast or around Tehran. The rest, winding through mountains or vanishing into desert, turned to mud or dust, stranding trucks and wagons alike. The British and Soviets discovered this firsthand in 1941. Their invasion depended on the Trans-Iranian Railway, a single-track line finished just 3 years earlier. At its wartime peak, the railway managed about 400,000 tons of freight per month, moving fuel, food, and munitions from the Persian Gulf to the Caspian. But every kilometer was a potential choke point. High-altitude bridges, narrow tunnels, and long stretches vulnerable to landslides or sabotage. Schedules were tight. A single delay could ripple backward, stalling entire divisions for days. The Karun River, Iran's only navigable waterway, offered little relief. Shallow, silt-choked, and unpredictable, it could handle small boats, but never the volume needed to keep an army supplied. Engineering reports from the period detail how even minor flooding or drought could close the river entirely to transport. For every invading force, whether Russian, British, or Ottoman, the same pattern repeated. Supplies funneled through a handful of mountain passes and rail lines, each one a single point of failure. The terrain didn't just slow armies, it starved them of fuel, ammunition, and food. Even the best-equipped invaders found their advance grinding to a halt, not from enemy fire, but from the land itself. In modern Iran, defiance against foreign control is not just a slogan. It's a social reality shaped by generations who lived through occupation, revolution, and war. The 1979 revolution did more than topple a monarchy. It transformed the idea of resistance into a national duty. Revolutionary leaders mobilized millions, blending Islamic values with a deep-rooted sense of Persian independence. The Basij, a volunteer militia formed in the early days of the revolution, became the face of this new ethos. Young men and women, some barely teenagers, answered the call to defend their country, especially when the Iran-Iraq War erupted in 1980. During 8 years of conflict, the Basij suffered staggering losses. Estimates put total casualties above 500,000, though exact numbers remain debated. The willingness to endure such sacrifice was not driven by command alone. It came from a belief that foreign aggression threatened not just borders, but the survival of Iran's identity and faith. This conviction still runs deep. Surveys conducted by the Tehran Institute for Social Research and the World Values Survey show that around 80% of Iranians view the presence of foreign troops as an existential threat. The culture of resistance is not abstract. It is lived in families that lost sons at the front, in schools that teach the stories of sacred defense, and in the annual marches that commemorate those who fell. The Basij remains a pillar of mass mobilization, ready to fill the gap between regular forces and the population. For any would-be occupier, this means facing not just soldiers, but a society primed to resist, drawing on a memory that occupation can be survived and repelled at any cost. Iran's defensive edge today is built on a network that fuses technology, terrain, and ideology. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps oversees an arsenal of more than 1,400 ballistic and cruise missiles, ranging from short-range Fateh 110s to the longer-reaching Shahab and Sejil families. Over 300 military drones, including the Shahed and Mahajer series, operate across the country, capable of launching from remote airstrips or hidden bunkers carved deep into the mountains. Many launch sites are buried in underground complexes, mapped by satellite as clusters of blast doors and disguised tunnels stretching beneath the Zagros and Central Plateau. These facilities are designed to withstand airstrikes and keep weapons ready for rapid dispersal. The Strait of Hormuz, only 39 kilometers wide at its narrowest, can be threatened by anti-ship missiles and sea mines launched from camouflaged positions. Military planners estimate Iran could close the strait for up to 48 hours, disrupting nearly a fifth of global oil trade and triggering a worldwide economic shock. Each piece of this arsenal is shaped to exploit the country's geography and the willingness to fight on home ground, raising the cost of intervention far beyond the reach of most adversaries. Pentagon planners running classified war games on Iran have reached a stark conclusion. Any invasion would demand at least 500,000 troops just to secure the main population centers and supply lines. NATO logistics studies estimate the cost of keeping those forces moving — fuel, food, ammunition, medical care — would top $12 billion each month. Projected casualties for the first year alone can exceed 100,000, even without accounting for insurgency or sabotage. These numbers are not abstract. They come from detailed simulations that factor in Iran's geography, urban density, and the resilience of its defenses. The price of occupation in both lives and resources stands far beyond what most modern states are willing or able to pay. Today, Iran's geography and national identity remain its strongest shields. As new powers weigh military options, history warns: occupation here is never simple, never cheap, never lasting. The terrain still resists, and the people still remember. Some borders are easier to cross than to control. Share your thoughts below.